Welcome everyone to another episode of Just Saying Football with Jack and Sean. I'm your host Sean Gannon alongside my partner Jackman Nicholas. We're here to bring you news, notes, weekly updates, and game analysis of your favorite teams from around the league. Now the chance, go check out our website, justsayingfootball.com. Follow us on Instagram at JustSayingNoGWJS for article and video updates. And don't forget to get us in your ears on Spotify at Just Saying Football. It's week one. It's exciting. A handful of announcements for everybody. Some changes. One episode per week will be released every Wednesday. You can check the link tree in our bio. You can check out our Just Saying Bets page on Instagram as well. You can see our Spotify, our Instagram, our YouTube page. Everything will be there for you. But we're just going to do one episode going forward, release on Wednesdays. Stay tuned, though, as you watch Instagram throughout the year. A lot of sports bets coming your way, Just Saying Bets. A lot of things going on with fantasy. Stay tuned for that, injury updates, etc. So a lot more happening on the social media side, everybody.
Yeah, 2024, week one. You know how we're breaking it down. We're going to do our blowouts, our mega games, and we got a lot of games of the week this week. Sean, they blessed us with this schedule release, and it's going to be awesome. I'm super psyched. And yeah, we're going to have everything going this year. It's going to be amazing. I'm super excited.
I'm looking forward to it. I say let's just jump right into it with our blowouts for week one. Starting right off the bat, we got the New England Patriots making their way to Cincinnati to take on the Bengals. This is a 1 o'clock game. Bengals are favored in this one by minus 8.5, over under here of 40. I'm locking in the Bengals right off the bat. Patriots, I'm really worried about you this season. There are a lot of holes on this entire roster. To me, it's one of the worst rosters in all the NFL. And now you're going up against Cincinnati, who's a great team, I think, even without Jamar Chase.
Yeah, no Jamar Chase. People are talking about Joe Burrow's hand injury. There could be some issues, but you just said it, Sean. Worry about the Patriots is definitely huge this year. 8.5 spread on this game. Definitely the biggest spread of the week. Most expected blowout. And the Bengals at home, they're definitely going to make a statement no matter who's going to play this weekend.
Yep, absolutely. Let's keep this moving along. We have the Carolina Panthers making their way to New Orleans to take on the Saints. Saints are favored in this one by minus 4, over under here 41.5. What are your thoughts going into this one?
Yeah, the Carolina Panthers have something to prove. Losing the last two seasons finishing the last two seasons as the worst team in the entire league. Obviously losing that pick in the trade last year. It is, just time for New Orleans to show us whether they're going, what direction they're going in. Alvin Kamara is kind of getting up there in age. They don't have Michael Thomas anymore. So it is just time to kind of see what they can do. But I'm taking New Orleans no matter what. I just don't think the Panthers are at that level to compete yet.
Yeah, I'm also going to lock in the Saints. I'm a little bit worried about the holes for the Saints this year. Didn't really do anything to necessarily get better. Their roster sort of stayed the same, a little bit like the Cowboys and some of the other teams out there. So I'm very curious, does Rashid Shaheed take the next step up? I'm locking them, though, in this game. I am very excited to see Deontay Johnson on this Panthers team. I think he's going to really help give Bryce Young a wide receiver one. I've been talking about him throughout the offseason, especially for fantasy. So let's see if they can put something together against a pretty good Saints team that I think is ultimately going to win in this one. So let's keep this moving along. So we have a Super Bowl rematch from the Denver Broncos making their way to Seattle to take on the Seahawks. Seahawks are in this one by minus 6, over under here 41.5. Bo Nix is going to get the start in this one. We have another rookie quarterback in the start. What are your thoughts as he heads to his first away game in the NFL?
Yeah, rookies, they always try to make a statement, but it's a hard place to do when you're playing in Seattle. And this team in Seattle is definitely on the rise. Geno Smith really showed out last year, and they still have DK Metcalf, Jackson Smith-Njigba on the rise. Kenneth Walker. So I'm expecting a lot of offensive show out for Seattle, and I just don't think Denver can keep up. But, respect to Sean Payton, I still think he could put a game plan together to keep it close. But this is definitely a potential for a blowout game.
Absolutely. I think Bo Nix did really well in the preseason. I'm excited to see what they can do with him. Obviously, these games get a little bit different once you have the preseason. Geno Smith wants a contract extension. They didn't have the best 2023 campaign following that 2022 season, so I expect also the Seahawks offense to really kind of get going again. Like you said, Jackson Smith-Njigba should have a big year too. DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett as we get towards the tail end of his career, sadly, over these next few years. But this is still a solid offense. Let's see if their defense can step up and make a little bit of the hectic plays for Bo Nix. Moving this right along, we have our meh categories. First on this list, we have the Pittsburgh Steelers making their way to Atlanta to take on the Falcons. Falcons are favored in this one by -3 with an over-under here of 42. Kirk Cousins, I don't miss you. What are your thoughts?
We did not expect that if you've watched the show before. You definitely know Sean is excited for a change in Minnesota and not the new change that's coming next year off of injury. But now, two different quarterbacks, both veterans, playing in Atlanta this weekend. We got Russell Wilson on one side and Kirk Cousins on the other. If you told me a couple of years ago that these guys are going to be on this team, it would have been some crazy multiverse thing. But, both these guys definitely have something to prove. I don't know how Cousins is going to look off the injury, but I think that with Bijan there, that definitely takes off some of the load. Expecting, with the way that this offense has looked to be run, it's probably going to be pretty run heavy. But I'm excited to see what Drake London can do, and I think the Steelers' defense really is going to be the X factor for me. The Steelers are a better, well put together team. Atlanta just has more exciting offseason storylines this year.
Yeah, I mean they go out, they get Matthew Judon in a trade. I think they also signed Justin Simmons in the offseason. They go out and they get Kirk Cousins. Obviously, they draft Michael Penix Jr. and the whole storyline that was going along with that.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of excitement with the Falcons, but I agree with you. I think there's a reality here. He's coming back from an Achilles injury. We don't know how he's going to look. It's a new system. No offense to Drake London, but he's not necessarily Justin Jefferson, who is a great blanket for any wide receiver. And there's no real running mates to Drake London outside of Kyle Pitts, who we haven't really seen take that next step. So to me, the Steelers defense, like you, absolutely an X factor in this one. I'm going to lock them in for sure going into this game. I do expect a better season from the Steelers offensively with Russell Wilson or Justin Fields. But the preseason didn't give a lot of hope, so let's see what they're able to do offensively. Arthur Smith going back to Atlanta, this is a revenge game for him. Maybe the team rallies around that. Maybe he's beloved in Pittsburgh.
Yeah, but I'm riding the Steelers with you, no matter. I talk big about Atlanta. I just want people to know that I'm riding with you on the Steelers.
Absolutely. All right, let's get moving along in our man category. We have the Tennessee Titans making their way to Chicago to take on the Bears. Bears are favored in this one by -4.5. Over-under here of 45. Caleb Williams, number 1 overall pick, obviously getting his first start. How are you feeling about this one?
Yeah, Caleb has looked good to me as far as Hard Knocks, but the actual games. He looks like he's up and ready. Chicago definitely has a loaded offense. I'm interested to see how their defense is looking. Both of these teams definitely have a different look than they did last year when we saw them. So I'm interested to see on the Titans side as well how he can react. If he can keep up with the offense that added Calvin Ridley and now has Tony Pollard and Will Levis taking a next year step. But Caleb, I think he's pro ready and he has the weapons to do it. This actually could be a shootout in my mind when I really think about it. But I will be taking the Bears. I think that Tennessee is a little too unpredictable for me right now to take them, and I love what the Bears have been doing, so I'm going with the Bears.
Yeah, I'm also with you. I'm not sure if I saw enough from Will Levis to say comfortably he'll have a great year two. Not to say that's not going to happen. They brought in Tony Pollard, and so I'm very curious. They also got Snead in there, which will be a great cornerback and a huge challenge for Caleb Williams. Ultimately, I think this is where home field advantage, week one, plays a huge role. It's the number one pick. There's a lot of excitement right now in Chicago about the potential of what this offense and what this team can do. Again, Snead will be a great first challenge for this offense and what they're able to do. But I'm going to lock in Caleb Williams and this Bears team. Again, I just think this is week one. It's that home field advantage. There's two kind of teams that don't know which direction this offense are going to go. But I think we have seen enough from Caleb Williams in the preseason to comfortably say he's for sure the starter. You know what I mean? And we're going to ride with this.
For sure. And you can tell that, like, there was a thing the other day, they were saying that, most of the guys they focused on this offseason were around surrounding him with people for the next 5 years. So, when you look at Caleb this weekend, just know it's the first step in probably a very long career.
Yeah, very, very curious to see what's going to happen. Does he break the 4,000 yards that no Bears quarterback has ever done? Is a receiver, is DJ Moore going to break the, Justin Jefferson already has more receiving yards than the entire Bears wide receiving core has had, not combined, but has already had more than any of their receivers in their entire history. So it's let's get going offensively, especially with the passing game here in Chicago. So there's a lot of excitement I'm here for it. Let's keep this moving along. It's an AFC South battle. The Houston Texans make their way to Indianapolis to take on the Colts. Houston's favored in this one by only -2.5 with an over-under here of 48.5. I really like the 48.5. I'm going to take the over on that comfortably. I'm also going to lock in the Texans without question. But what are your thoughts on this game?
Yeah, I'm locking in the Texans, but I just want the people to know that this could be one of the upset games of the week for me. I don't know. It would be something that I feel like you got to watch and live bet. But if there's any life in the Indianapolis Colts in the second half, there's a real shot for the Texans to lose this game because they have added so much talent. But it's really about building the chemistry throughout the year. I think that they did everything this season to take themselves to a new level. The Texans. But, the biggest person that can take you down in those moments are a divisional opponent. And we don't know what we're going to get from Anthony Richardson after his injured, kind of rookie season. So I think that, I'm going to lock the Texans in here. But like you said, 48.5, I like the over there because it is going to be a back and forth game in my mind.
Yeah, I think this is, there's a lot of question marks with both these teams. Stroud had such a great year one, and I don't think it's fair to just assume that they'll be right back in the playoffs as easy or as good as it looked last year. It's year two. People now have film on him of how defenses approach him are going to be a little bit different. So not to say tamper expectations. This is a weak division, and it should go to Houston. But I think it's fair to say there might be some growing pains a little bit in year two. I think he's the quarterback of the future for the Texans. I think they landed them their guy. This is not to say anything with it, but I also don't want to put all this pressure on such a young quarterback in only year two. So I just want to put that out there. But I love what they did defensively. They go out and they get Danielle Hunter. They sign him to a huge contract. That's a my guy for years in Minnesota. You're going to love him. He's coming off of a 16.5 sack. So I love what this defense is going to do, and I think that this offense is built. I'm very curious to see who's the wide receiver one? Is it Nico Collins? Is it Tank Dell? Is it going to be Stephon Diggs? Is it Joe Mixon? There's so many mouths, Dalton Schultz. There's so many mouths to feed on this offense, and that can be a good problem, but you have to see how the offense is going to play out, or maybe it ends up a Green Bay situation. 3 weeks it's Diggs, 4 weeks it's Dell, 2 weeks it's Diggs again, 4 weeks it's Nico Collins. Who knows? It's going to be interesting, but I like the Texans for this game.
Yeah, and you excited for this next game? Because it's going to be the game. It's not a game of the week for us, but it is going to be the game that me and you will be watching most closely.
It's a pretty gross game. We got the Minnesota Vikings making their way to New York to take on the Giants. Minnesota's favored in this one by a dismal -1.5, over-under here of 41.5. And this is the week one matchup that people talk about. Sam Darnold, Daniel Jones, just two powerhouse quarterbacks. Just absolutely.
This is what you're paying to watch when you're paying for that NFL Sunday ticket.
Yep. That's what everybody was tuning into. I mean, both number one overall picks, both top 10 picks. This is that's what you're here for in the NFL. But I'm locking in the Giants. I think what they've done defensively, Brian Burns, Dexter Lawrence, Kayvon Thibodeau, this is going to be a game that they always try to dominate. This is going to be the bread and butter. I think this is a very underrated Giants team. They got Bobby Okereke, who's a very underrated linebacker. Deontay Banks, who didn't get a lot of love last season compared to some of the other cornerbacks in the league. And for me right now, despite the weapons that the Vikings have, I don't know if they'll be able, with Sam Darnold, to evade the pass rush, to evade these guys that I just listed. And that makes me a little bit worried. I will just say Christian Darrisaw versus Brian Burns and Brian O'Neill versus Kayvon Thibodeau, reverse it whichever way that matchup works, will be a highlight of this game and a matchup to watch for sure on the offensive defensive line, though.
Yeah, you're right. This game's definitely going to be won in the trenches. When you have shaky quarterback play, you got to rely on the other, your pass rushers to just make the other quarterback uncomfortable. Unfortunately, in MetLife Stadium, we have seen a history of both of these quarterbacks being uncomfortable. Like you said, this Giants defense is really the X factor for me. I think that, losing Danielle Hunter this offseason for Minnesota, they've had some injuries to their secondary. It is an opportunity for maybe Daniel Jones to get opportunity to be throwing, and he's going to need to be throwing more than ever now with the injury to his leg. We're going to have to see him be able to get the ball out of the pocket. I do think, at this veteran point, we're talking bad about these guys, but they'll probably have better seasons than we expect. But make it simple, take the Giants from me.
Yeah, I'm with you. I also just want to say it will be a good matchup. Stephon Gilmore is not the Stephon Gilmore of a few years ago. And that's no disrespect to him. I think still at 32 is playing at a very high level compared to other guys.
Yeah.
But that's a good first matchup also for Neighbors and Daniel Jones. How's this offense going to look also? So just want to throw that out there. And Gilmore was a very late signing on the Vikings, so temper that expectation as well.
Yeah, I know I've been talking about a lot about Malik all off season, but I'm very ready to see him play. Like I can't wait.
I'll be at the game. I'm ready to just get my heart broken. It's totally fine. It's going to be a long season. All right, let's move this right along. So the Las Vegas Raiders making their way to Los Angeles to take on the Chargers. Chargers are favored in this one by -3. Over under here of 40.5. Now I got to say, Raiders have probably one of the ugliest quarterback rooms currently. No offense to Gardner Minshew, but all the reports this offseason of just both of them not doing well in practice and having to take out Max Crosby because they can't run offensively. These are things that you don't want to hear.
Yeah, I think that, I think that's also a credit to Max Crosby and what a dog he is. We've always loved him on this show. But it also speaks to, for me, this game, I think the Raiders could win just because Gardner has Devontae Adams, because he has Brock Bowers, new weapons. Zamir White's going to be interesting to see how he goes, but there is no team that I feel like got worse this offseason than the Chargers, despite the hiring of John Harbaugh. I think they get knocked in the mouth here by the Raiders, a division opponent, while they're at home. The Chargers are favored by 3. I genuinely think this is an amazing underdog pick of the week to get the Raiders on the road.
Yeah, I agree. It's also the Raiders for me. I think the only thing that the Chargers fans have to look forward to is their future. I think Herbert is. I know there's a lot of conversation about is he good enough and does he deserve the money. I think he might not have the playoffs that some of these other guys like Burrow and Tua and Jackson and like the accolades, but I think people also forget like Philip Rivers didn't have that either. And he's still considered by many standards a very good quarterback. Not to say that Herbert's going to fall into that trap, but like Herbert's a good quarterback, and Harbaugh is now going to build a team offensively around him. But it's going to come at the cost of like a couple brutal seasons, and this is going to be one of them. Like I agree with you. They lost Austin Eckler, they lost Mike Williams, they lost Keenan Allen. Like these are your playmakers that are now gone. It's rough. Take the Raiders on this one for sure. I love that money line. That's a good one. Let's move this right along. Do the Dallas Cowboys making their way to Cleveland to take on the Browns. Cleveland is favoring this one by -2.5. Over under here of 41.5. Now you're talking about teams that didn't get better. I think the Cowboys didn't get better. They didn't really make any big signings. What are your thoughts going into this game?
Yeah, I mean, the Browns definitely showed us something last season by being one of the best scoring defenses in the league. Obviously, you see that reflected with the 41.5. Now CeeDee Lamb back for the Cowboys, so I'm hoping he can give them a little bit of trouble. We're all hoping to see him ball out. But, probably the only good thing they did this offseason, as you mentioned, was getting CD back, and they just did that last week. I do think they could be a little shaken up. It's not an easy defense to go up against week 1. And, the Browns are definitely going to be trying to see what they can do with Jerome Ford, Deshaun Watson. They just got Jerry Jeudy this offseason. So it'll be very interesting to see how this team kind of develops. But I think the Cowboys offense right now is probably going to be a little out of sync with, having a lack of weapons, but you never really know. They're 2 good tight ends in this game, David Njoku, Jake Ferguson. But it really comes down to the Browns defense for me, and if the Cowboys have it all together. But like you said, I don't think that they kind of went up this offseason.
Yeah, they didn't draft any playmakers until I think the 5th or 6th round. The CeeDee Lamb signing is huge. Obviously, that is going to be their future offensively. And then this offseason, they're going to have to figure out what they're going to do with Dak. Raiders, yeah, and like Raiders could be a team that goes after Dak because their quarterback need and cap space. There's a lot of question marks right now, I think, going forward with this Cowboys team. I like the Browns just more. Defense is a little bit better, in my opinion. Like you said, they were the number 1 scoring defense last season. I do like Jerry Jeudy on this team as well. I feel like he's been an underrated guy. It's not just because I love him and Madden and I trade for him in every single time I do a Dynasty League, okay? The reason why is I think he was underutilized in a bad quarterback situation and a weird wide receiver room in Denver. And now he has the opportunity to be the clear-cut wide receiver too. You got an Njoku, you got a good offensive line. You should have a good running game in Jerome Ford, and then Nick Chubb looks to be back maybe in week 5, maybe in week 6, around that time. So to me, I just like the Browns this season. I think the AFC North is tough. I think you like every season we talk about it. There's a potential for 3 teams in that division to make it into the playoffs, and the Browns are one of them. I think any 4 of these teams could slip into the playoffs. So I like the Browns in this one. I still have flashbacks to when they played in Dallas with OBJ going off finally in like his first game. Not his first game, like his first going off game for the Browns. So that was nice to see. I also the over in this one. But let's keep this moving along. So we have a lot more games here to discuss, including the Arizona Cardinals making their way to Buffalo to take on the Bills. Buffalo's favored this one by -6 with an over-under here of 48. Jack, what are your thoughts on this? Because this isn't in our blowout section, but it's a huge spread at the moment.
There was a big spread on this one, and, spoiler alert, this is getting to the part of the show where me and you are going to start disagreeing, and this is because of a game like this where things start getting a little complicated. You say, Buffalo, I would take Buffalo in this game, but that 6-point spread is dangerous because I don't know what I'm going to get out of either of these passing offenses. You have a rookie quarterback, you have a rookie receiver on both sides as the number 1 guy. And you have amazing tight ends on both these teams. So I'm expecting these teams to be going through their run games and trying to get down to the tight ends, trying to get Josh Allen going. But it's hard for me to bet against Josh Allen week 1. I feel like every time I go and I say, I don't think he's going to go and do this. And then he goes and does it. I think the Cardinals, they definitely got better this offseason and they're going to hit the ground running. But is it enough for me to believe in Buffalo? What do you think?
For me, I'm worried about Buffalo. I think this is like a huge turnaround season for them. I am genuinely worried about this offense. I think the defense is good. You got Greg Rousseau, you got AJ Epinesa, you still have Von Miller on the team who didn't have his best season. Matt Milano went down. You're missing both of your starting safeties, Micah Hyde and oh my God, why am I blanking on the other guy's name? Jordan Poyer. Thank you. They're no longer with the team. And then, if you look offensively, was it maybe the right move to offload Diggs? Only time will tell.
Yeah.
But now you're relying on Khalil Shakir, a rookie Keon Coleman, and Curtis Samuel. And then your backups are Matt Collins, Marquez Valdes-Scantling, Ray Davis. Like, these are the things that you begin to get worried about. That the depth on this team, if one of these starters goes down, it's going to be brutal for them. So I'm worried about this offense. I don't know what we're going to get for them. I'm locking in the Cardinals in this game. And at least if you don't like the money line on that because of the spread, I would say that the Cardinals cover that spread. I think that they're going to lose by less than 6 at the very least. But I'm locking them, and I think Marvis Harrison Jr. is going to have a good game. Trey McBride is an underrated tight end. James Conner is a ground and pound guy. But to me, there's a little bit more security in what this Cardinals team can do, despite their defense being a little bit lackluster outside of Zaven Collins and maybe Sean Murphy Bunting,
Yeah, and of course, I feel like this could be one of the games, like you're saying, where it just gets close, or Arizona is able to pull out this win because nobody knows what to expect. But this is definitely a game that I'm conflicted on. But I'm going to take Buffalo. They're at home. They still have Josh Allen, who I would take over Kyler. But it's going to be very interesting because this is going to really set the tone for both of these teams this season.
Yep, it's going to be an interesting one for sure. I'm very curious to see how the AFC East also shakes up with this week 1 going on. All right, let's move this right along. So you have the Jacksonville Jaguars making their way to Miami to take on the Dolphins. Miami's here in this one by -3 and an over-under here of 50. What are your thoughts going into this game? Both Trevor Lawrence and Tua got paid this offseason.
Yeah, and they're going to have to prove it. This is a battle of Florida. Get ready, Florida people. This is your Super Bowl because neither of these teams have been there in a long time. So I will say that I'm going to take Miami here. Not a long trip to go week 1 if you're going on the road. I feel like, they have an interesting thing with Jalen Waddle right now that he's injured or whatever, but I truly think everybody's going to be there day 1. It's going to be Mostert and A-Chain in the backfield, as dangerous as they were last year. You also have Hill, Waddle going over top. You have to really ask, can Jacksonville support that in their secondary? But, are we getting back to the Saxonville days? They've been loading up on some, great, front guys. You got to keep Tua upright. So, for me, the Dolphins, I'm sorry I said they were on the road, but they're at home. They're favored. I will take them here. I don't know about that 50-point over-under because I don't know what these defenses are going to look like. But that is something we're going to have to expect this season with Miami. Vegas is expecting them to score a lot of points.
See, for me, I'm going with Jacksonville, and it has nothing to do with the lack of faith in what this offense can do for Miami. I think that's top tier offense. Draft your Tyreek Hills. Despite the Waddle injury, of course, you draft him. And Devon Achane and Raheem Mostert are going to have their own great ways of contributing. I'm a little bit worried about this defense, especially for the long term. We saw them kind of give up a lot of points last year. They weren't getting after the quarterback. Javon Holland is going to be coming back from injury right now. You also have Jalen Phillips coming back from injury right now, and they do have Calais Campbell, and they got Emmanuel Ogbah, and they do have Jordan Poyer, the GOAT from Buffalo, formerly.
Yeah.
But I'm worried about what this defense can do, so I'll lock in Jacksonville. I don't think Trevor Lawrence is a bad quarterback. I think he had a bad season, and I think they're going to get back to what we saw just a few years ago with what they did. I like that they got Gabe Davis in there. I like that they also drafted Brian Thomas Jr., who's supposedly been killing it throughout all of training camp. So to me, and there's a little bit more safety across the board with this Jacksonville Jaguars team, while this Miami defense has me a little bit more worried than others would.
Yeah, I get that, but I will agree with you that Jacksonville definitely has more potential than people are giving them credit for. Just those offseason additions, especially Kirk, especially now getting his number one spot. I think that they are going to be underrated, but the Dolphins, they have that big playability that just drives me to pick them this week.
Yeah, Tyreek Hill is Tyreek Hill. All right, let's move this right along. So the Washington Commanders making their way to Tampa Bay to take on the Buccaneers. Buccaneers are favored in this one at -3, over-under here of 44. Jaden Daniels getting his first start as a rookie. What are your thoughts on the road?
Yeah, and I've been talking crap about Jaden Daniels all season, but I am going to pick him to win this game. I think that if there's one game on the schedule this week that makes me say I don't really have a horse in that race. I don't really know if I'm going to touch that game until I see what these teams are going to look like. It's this Washington Commanders Tampa Bay Buccaneers game this week. Jaden Daniels, as long as he can kind of stay mistake-free, stay upright, I think that this could be a good game for him. The Buccaneers are still a good team, though. We saw Baker take a lot of strides last year with Evans and Godwin, Rachaad White getting great. The Commanders, for me, they just seem like the sneaky pick this week that comes out of nowhere and ruins my bet slip. So for me, I'm not saying in any way that it's not a good idea. I just think it's crazy. This is a crazy game to predict because it's really hard to know what you're going to get out of these teams.
Washington first 4 weeks is always something of an enigma, so to speak. Remember, Sam Howell was like on a weird pace for yards, so I totally get that. I'm locking in Tampa Bay. They're one of my sleeper teams of the year. Nice. AFC South and NFC South, I think, are like the two worst divisions in football right now. And to me, they're the clear-cut winners of the NFC South. I don't think that they're the favorites right now to win. If you checked out just saying bets, I did say put them in instead of Atlanta. Just want to put that out there again. But they bring back all their guys. They re-sign the key guys that they needed to. They bolster up the interior of the offensive line because they have good guards to help out Baker. I think that everything is going in the right direction for Tampa Bay to continue to succeed. So for me, it's those things. And you get Todd Bowles, who's a defensive mind, going up against a rookie quarterback. It's going to be a tough first test for Daniels. It's going to be on the road. I like everything that Tampa Bay is doing. I also have them winning the NFC South, so just keep that in mind. There's a little bit of bias in this. But
I'm going to be riding Tampa Bay this season big time.
Yeah, big Kate Otten fan. Don't sleep on him. He's an underrated tight end. All right, let's move this in to our games of the week, and you guys guessed it. The games of the week are all the primetime games. So, first one we got is the Thursday night football game when the Baltimore Ravens make their way to Kansas City to take on the Chiefs. It's an 8:15 game at night on this Thursday. Kansas City's favored in this one -3, over-under here of 46.5. Obviously, this is an AFC Championship rematch. They did not hit that 46.5 the last time. What are your thoughts going into this game?
Yeah, so when like you said, this is a huge rematch. I think Baltimore is going to need to make a statement. Last year, we were really big on Kansas City, and we saw the emergence of the Detroit Lions, and Detroit got them week 1 in Arrowhead. I truly think that this year, even though I have the Ravens as my Super Bowl pick, I do not think that they're going to be able to win this game. I think that the defenses this year for both these teams are going to be some of the better defenses that we've seen. And I know that, Baltimore, you can say that they lost a few guys on defense, but it is going to take a second for them to get everybody back together to being the number one scoring defense and number one in yards like they were last year. Kansas City, they definitely got a little break with Rashee Rice playing, Pacheco, everybody's there this week, Kelsey. It's going to be a very interesting game, but it's going to be on Kansas City to stop Derrick Henry. I think once they stop him, they're going to be able to try to contain Lamar and try to stop Mark Andrews, but both this is an amazing game. I'm so happy they gave it to this. They gave this to us on the kickoff game.
Yeah, I honestly think this is one of the best games of the entire week. I'm locking in Kansas City as well, just because they've been there, kind of done that. And also, I do think that signing Hollywood Brown this offseason was great. Rashee Rice, we're going to figure out, obviously, what's going on with his legal stuff, but still a solid young wide receiver. They go out, they get Xavier, whether they're trying to reload this offense for the post-Kelsey era of Patrick Mahomes' career. Not that Kelsey's leaving after this season, but, age is getting up there. He's still having great seasons. He's not going anywhere anytime soon. But you got to start to think about 4 years down the line a little bit, because you got Mahomes for another 7 years.
Yeah.
I'm very curious to see what this Baltimore offense looks like this season. Mark Andrews being fully healthy again. Obviously got Derrick Henry. Is he going to be this missing piece for the offense with what we saw with Lamar Jackson's MVP season last year? The big thing for me, and it's the same thing I think we keep talking about year in and year out with Lamar Jackson, just want to see a true wide receiver one for him. So very curious of what Zay Flowers does, what Rashad Bateman does, kind of in what is essentially his last year potentially in Baltimore, unless he puts it together. But I'm locking in Kansas City. I agree with you. I also think Arrowhead is always tough to play in. Detroit, they came in, they won last year, but there was also a pretty ugly Kadarius Toney drop. Yeah. That led to an interception and a score. Yeah, and he's no longer with the team. So a lot of changes going on, but I'm locking in Kansas City for this one. I like him. Let's move this right along to our next game of the week. It's a Monday Night Football game. We have the New York Jets making their way to San Francisco, take on the 49ers. 49ers favored in this one by -4.5. Over under here of 42.5. What do you think? Over under on 4 plays in the drive for Aaron Rodgers.
Oh my God! What if they go 3 and out though?
Fuck.
I think he definitely has to be feeling pretty good about himself, being in his late 30s, coming off the Achilles. Some people would say that's physically impossible. I remember saying that myself last year, that was physically impossible. But here we are. And I will say, Aaron Rodgers going back home to the Bay Area, he's definitely going to try to make a statement, use some, Breece Hall and Garrett Wilson. But they're playing the San Francisco 49ers, Sean. They're playing one of the best, if not the best team in the NFC by far. Second runner-up in the whole league last year, and they only got better getting Brandon Ayuk back this offseason. They still got CMC. Brock Purdy's running the show. I think the San Francisco 49ers defense is going to be giving Aaron Rodgers some trouble on Monday night.
Yeah, this is definitely... I'm locking in the 49ers because of all the guys you listed. They also... Just today, at the day of our recording, they figured out Trent Williams' contract. He's getting a huge bonus. He will be playing for them week 1. That is the lifeblood of this entire offense, for sure. So this is all the right things that they wanted going into this season. They're going to need to figure out Brock Purdy next season, obviously. And I think that for the Jets, this is a very exciting time. The Bills might be on the down slope in my eyes. The Dolphins might be a little bit stagnant, middle of the pack team. Now you're the only ones kind of on the up and up. Sorry, Patriots. So there's a lot of potential for them to make the playoffs, and there's a lot of expectations with this Jets team. They went out, they bolstered their offensive line. They get Tyron Smith, a longtime Cowboy, who's one of the best. They get Morgan Moses, who's solid right tackle as well. Joe Tippmann, we're still going to see what he can do, the former first-round draft pick from a few years ago. So I'm loving what they did, but I agree with you. The 49ers are just one of the best teams in football, if not the best team. Aaron Rodgers didn't play any of the preseason. We haven't seen what he can do outside of practice stuff, where it's, not to say that they're not practicing 100%, but you can't hit the quarterback. You're not taking these hits. You don't have the bias. There's a lot of question marks. Now you send him out to the Wolves week 1. I don't know. I would have just had him in for like a couple plays. I'm not a head coach of the NFL. But I'm locking in the 49ers without question. He's also only 6-2 or 6-3 against him in his career, and in the playoffs. Looking back at Green Bay, it's been rough.
Yeah.
Let's see if he can rewrite history. All right, let's keep this moving along. We have a Friday game.
Friday.
Yes. A Friday game. Fun fact about this year, there's going to be a football game not every day of the week, but there will be a football game on a Monday, a Wednesday, a Thursday, a Friday, a Saturday, and a Sunday happening this year. So it's an exciting time. Why they didn't pick Tuesdays, I don't know. I'm not in the building. But in Friday, we're going to be in Brazil. We got the Green Bay Packers at Philadelphia taking on the Eagles. Again, it's in Brazil. It's a neutral site. Philadelphia's favored this one by -3, over under here of 48.5. What are your thoughts going into this game? It is the first game ever in Brazil. It's also Saquon's first game with the Eagles and Xavier McKinney's first game with the Packers, bud. These long-time great Giants.
You got me good there. Yeah, no, both those players obviously hugely missed. We could have added a little more if they were still there to our Giants segment before. But yeah, first game in Brazil, definitely cool to see the NFL expanding. I know that, they have the Germany games, the England games, so this is going to be really cool. Two good teams, definitely, two playoff teams from last year. I think that there aren't a lot of teams that have as much receiving talent as these two, so we're probably going to let it fly between Jalen Hurts and Jordan Love, who got paid huge this offseason after just being the starter. But you can see that all those years of sitting kind of paid off because he is as ready as can be for making another deep playoff run. I think that this is going to be a good example of, how can he, go after he gets paid. Is it going to change? And me and you were talking off camera. We don't know who his number one receiver is going to be yet, but we're trying to find out. But we do know on the other side, along with Saquon, you have two basically number one receivers in Smith and A.J. Brown, and I think they're both going to go off this week, if I'm being honest with you. But I'm going to take the Packers here. I think they established the run early with Josh Jacobs, and as long as Jordan Love can stay mistake-free, I think this could be an interesting little upset on a neutral site.
I'm going to go with Philadelphia. I love what they did this offseason. I hate saying that about Philly. They got better, but they did. When you go out, you get Barkley. That really does secure your run game, which was a little bit, kind of out of sorts last year. I think it was really smart of them. They go out, they draft Cooper DeJean. They sign Devin White. They get Quinyon Mitchell in the draft. Bradbury's injured right now. He'll be back in 6 to 8 weeks. But there's a reason why they drafted these young guys to get some young studs on the team. They're filling the gaps that were weak for them last year. So it's great to see that. I also think what we saw offensively was out of character for them the last few weeks of the season. I expect them to be what they were in the first 10 weeks more consistently. And now they filled these holes. Now they have guys they can rely on. I like that. I'm very curious as well to see who the wide receiver one is. Like you mentioned, we talked about it a little bit off camera. Yeah. I don't know who it's going to be. It could be Jaden Reed. Could be Christian Watson. Could be.
I think it'll be Jaden Reed, though. I think he has the medium of everything you need for the guy. He's not as big as Watson or fast as Dontavian Wicks, but I truly do think he's going to make some noise this year.
It's going to be interesting. I also, so I'm locking Philadelphia. I also think, honestly, I think they're the favorites to win the East, just because the Cowboys stay the same.
Yeah.
The Deron Bland. Yeah, but the Deron Bland injury is big, especially, they get Diggs back. You're hoping to get Bland with him. Now Bland is injured. Now you only got Diggs. Gilmore's in Minnesota. So it's going to be interesting. Let's see what happens with Philly, though, as the season plays out. All right, let's keep us moving along to our last game of the week, Sunday Night Football. LA Rams making their way to Detroit to take on the Lions. Detroit's favored in this one by -3.5. Over under here of 51. We saw these two teams go at each other in the playoffs, and the Lions walked away with a win. What are your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, Stafford is definitely rewatching that game from the playoffs and thinking, I got to make my mark this time we get back to Detroit. Sean McVay, probably one of, and Dan Campbell, to be honest, both these coaches, probably two of the most competitive football coaches you'll see ever. And when it comes down to it, Detroit being favored by 3.5 here, it's not expected, it's not as much of a drop off as people think between the talent between these two teams. You still have Stafford and Goff going back and forth, but that 51 points, this is going to be an amazing first Sunday Night Football game. I think that Stafford is going to get the revenge he needs. I think the Lions, like I said, everyone knows I'm big on them this offseason. I've been saying that I think Goff is going to lead the league in passing yards. I think that, there's going to have, Laporta is going to have over 8 touchdowns. I've said the Lions are going to win the division. But I do believe here they start 0-1, and you have that story. It is football. Any given Sunday, you could have somebody who just knows what they're doing. And Matthew Stafford, when it comes down to it, I trust him more than Goff in the 2 minutes. So if this is a close game, watch out for the Rams.
I like Detroit in this one. They're at home. They just beat them last year in the playoffs. They're still, kind of riding the 2023 season high. There's going to be no Aaron Donald in this one. Aaron Donald officially retired, so he's not going to be playing there for the Rams, which is weird to say because he's just been around our entire lives. Jack was this close to getting him for the Giants in the draft all those years ago. But I love everything that the Lions have been doing. I think they have a great offensive line. They got a solid defensive line. They have a good receiving core. I'm very curious to see if Jameson Williams finally puts it all together. We've seen so many great flashes, and if he comes as true wide receiver too, I don't know how you're going to be able to stop this offense with Gibbs, Laporta, Williams, and Amon-Ra St. Brown, and what looks to be like a great quarterback in Jared Goff. McVay's a great head coach. He's going to put together a good scheme. He's got Cooper fully healthy. Puka dealt with a few injuries, but he seems to be fully healthy. The only thing I'm concerned about is what every single fantasy owner is concerned about: Kyren Williams returning punts. We don't need that. That doesn't have to happen.
Yeah. I think that if you have a committee between Kyren and you have a guy like him and Blake Corum where you can do a little bit of everything, only Sean McVay, is a guy that will, no matter what, assure you that he's going to be okay. You have Puka, like you said. You have, even Tyler Higbee there. Matthew Stafford is comfortable. These guys just won the Super Bowl a couple of years ago. I feel like a lot of people are discounting them. But like you're saying, the Lions are on the rise. Like, don't get it wrong. I'm picking the Rams for this amazing story that Stafford could go back and destroy them after they destroyed him. But the Lions are going to be great this season.
Lions Packers towards the end of the NFC and end of the season will determine the NFC North. I'm very curious, unless the Vikings with Sam Darnold. I don't know.
Don't get too far ahead of yourself. It's week 1.
It's week 1. Hey, anybody can win the trophy right now, right? That's the time we love. That's all the time that we have today, though. Week 1 episode in the books. Very excited to see how this season goes. Remember, 1 episode per week. Yep. A lot of content at Just Saying on Instagram and Just Saying Bets on Instagram. So stay tuned there.
Yep, everybody check it out every week. Thank you for your support. Make sure as you get into the fantasy that we're going to have fantasy advice for you every week. Check our Discord, Just Saying Football, and make sure to check us out, as Sean said, on Just Saying with no G, WJS, and Just Saying Bets. We're going to have content for you all fall.
Enjoy.
Enjoy.